Chair Stevenson, welcome to the committee.
Good morning.
Good morning. Vice Chair Olson, would you like to move House File 3607 to get the bill before the committee?
So moved, Madam Chair.
All right, so thank you. Chair Stevenson, there's also an author's amendment that was pre-filed. Chair Olson, can you also move that?
Yes, I move the H3607 A16 Amendment.
Okay. Chair Stevenson, can you explain the amendment?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is an amendment just to get the bill in the shape I'd like the committee to consider it, and making a number of largely technical changes and fixes to some appropriations language.
Okay, Representative Gruffalo, question?
Madam Chair, before we take this up, and maybe it's a question for nonpartisan staff. When I looked at this amendment last night, I think it said that there was funding for the Department of Education in it. I think, is that this amendment? Is it, can nonpartisan staff just cover, I'm not familiar with this. I just, if perhaps you could just cover where that money is being carried and which target. Is it in the commerce target or is it in the education target?
Ms. Adrian.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members. And Ms. Eng is on the call, so in case I screw it up and don't explain it properly, she should correct me. But there is a licensing provision in this bill, and so and because it impacts different departments, then they're listed.
Hold on, let her explain.
Because the licensing provision impacts different departments, different agencies within the state, those are separated out, and the funding for those agencies is in the bill.
Okay.
And it is included in the targets that we that each committee area has.
So, Madam Chair, Ms. Adrian, so it's carried in the individual committees' targets, or is it carried in the, okay.
Yeah, that's correct. This would be included in this budget area's target.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Representative Albright. To the A6 amendment.
Madam Chair, my questions would pertain to the bill overall.
Okay, you want to hold off?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Seeing no further questions, the A16 amendment is before us. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay.
No.
The motion prevails. So House File 3607 as amended is before us. Chair Stevenson, please continue with your presentation of the bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. House File 3607 is the Commerce Supplemental Budget. It does contain both finance and policy measures at the request of the chair and Lead Garofalo. I'll just stick to the policy, or to the finance rather. We had a target of 7.8 million with 6.2 million in the tails. Finance provisions include a student loan advocate position in the Department of Commerce. This builds upon the Student Loan Borrowers Bill of Rights that passed as part of the budget agreement last year. This position would do education and outreach to students to try and prevent them from getting into trouble in the first place in terms of their student loans. It also contains a number of provisions relating to the Commerce Fraud Bureau, including funding for 5 additional peace officers in the Commerce Fraud Bureau to do the very important work they do on investigating insurance fraud. The bill also does expand their jurisdiction to include other financial crimes and gives them general fund money to accomplish that. Since the Commerce Fraud Bureau is funded off assessments on insurance companies, we think it's important that they have general fund money for the extent they're doing work that doesn't relate to insurance fraud. The Commerce Fraud Bureau also operates the auto theft prevention account, and we put additional general fund money into that program to recognize the problems that we are experiencing with a high amount of auto theft. It also includes Representative Haley's bill to study the geographic rating areas of MNsure to try and correct some of the imbalances between particularly southeastern Minnesota and the rest of the state. Lastly, it does include additional staffing in the insurance division and the governor's senior fraud prevention program. Oh, and this licensing program that we just referred to. What that is a a program that it does not change any licensing requirements for any license that's obtained across the state. It just gives applicants the opportunity to have their criminal background check done before they obtain the education and training and skills necessary to apply for the license and receive a determination from the licensing entity as to whether they are eligible. Again, it does not make anyone eligible who is not currently eligible. It's just letting people know on the front end whether they are eligible. Happy to answer questions.
Thank you, Chair Stevenson. We have Representative Albright.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Representative Stevenson, I'm looking at page 70 of the bill with regard to Section 29, and I see that there are some substantial material modifications to compliance with regard to FINRA, and you're inserting data and descriptive with regard to comparable standards. Could you elaborate in terms of the rationale for why you are changing this in such a material way?
You are discussing, I'm sorry, Madam Chair, Representative Albright, are you discussing the language additions you said on page 70 on lines, you're looking at beginning on line 70.27?
Representative Albright.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Chair Stevenson, yes.
Chair Stevenson.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Representative Albright. This language comes from a model act coming out of the NAIC and relating to annuity suitability. It represents a consensus position of both stakeholders and regulators. And in this case, having the comparable standard allows, I think, greater flexibility for both commissioner and stakeholders.
Representative Albright.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Chair Stevenson, is your understanding then that FINRA is being supplanted by the NAIC language?
Chair Stevenson.
Madam Chair, Representative Albright, I don't know if I would use the word supplanted. I would say that this is the approach that the NAIC, the stakeholders in the department want to take on this issue going forward. I would note that this language is also traveling as a standalone bill, which, if memory serves, received unanimous support in the Commerce Committee.
Representative Albright.
Madam Chair, having spent a lot of time as a compliance officer for an RIA, an investment advisor, it always triggers me when I see changes to the compliance, particularly with regard to some of the investment vehicles that are utilized and are described in here, particularly with the annuities and some of the others. And then wrap that around the axle with regard to then you're also including a narrative on page 72 with regard to the SEC and the fiduciary responsibility for investment advisors. And I must say, Chair Stevenson, I hope that you are getting this right at your own peril and for the people that support this industry in Minnesota. So I'll look forward to the stakeholders maybe reaching out to me and seeing what their descriptive for this changes are. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Representative Albright. Representative Scott.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Representative Stevenson, could you, I'm looking at the spreadsheet, and could you tell me what is going on line 51 and 52 with this licensing provision that you've been talking about and the $27,000 that goes to the Attorney General in the next few years, each year?
Chair Stevenson.
Madam Chair, Representative Scott, I would want to pull up the fiscal note for House File 3403 to speak specifically to what the Attorney General was requesting, but I will tell you that generally what House File 3403 does is it creates a avenue for people who are seeking a license in a particular field or interested in seeking a license, I should say, to obtain a criminal background check and find out if they are eligible to, sorry, I'm also trying to pull up the fiscal note while I'm talking to you so that I can give you a better answer. But the general cost is for agencies to review and make those determinations. Having said that, so my belief would be that this would be for what the Attorney General is doing on that space, but perhaps there's something that I'm forgetting, and if I can find the fiscal note, I will be able to give you a more complete answer. So that's the best I can do right now, but I will look for the fiscal note for that bill while we are continuing to talk.
Representative Scott.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Representative Stevenson, so is it some sort of enforcement cost, or is this for people that are having some sort of, well, it says licensing applications is well, that's the title of the bill, but it just seems like, I just don't really understand why the Attorney General would need to be involved here, and I'm not familiar with the underlying bill, I guess. But it just seems like, you know, if it's for criminal background checks, that doesn't go to the Attorney General. That's the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension that does all the background checks. So, Madam Chair, if he could continue looking for that explanation of what that's for and report back to us if he gets that, I'd really appreciate that during this committee time if possible. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Representative Scott. So yes, Representative Stevenson, as Representative Scott stated, if you have not found a response yet, just continue to look for it, and if possible, before we leave today, maybe you can report that back to us, but if not, please do a follow-up with Representative Scott. Oh, we have an answer here maybe. Ms. Adrian.
Madam Chair and Representative Scott, I'm also trying to quickly look at the fiscal note. And so the Attorney General's office acts on behalf of a number of boards in terms of reviewing the licenses. And so some of the boards would include like the Board of Chiropractic Examiners, the Board of Marriage and Family Therapy. So some of the smaller boards that don't have, that need to kind of co-op services with other groups. So I think that's why the Attorney General's office is in here.
Representative Scott.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, seeing no further, Representative Garofalo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to thank Chairman Stevenson for including two provisions in the bill. Number one is that he included an extra $870,000 for insurance fraud prevention in this bill by using general fund money, but also I want to thank him for including Representative Robbins' bill in Article 4, Section 5. This is the unlawful social media activities provisions of this bill. This is it's an urgent matter, and Representative Stevenson, I'm hoping that if you have the chance, you're able to sit down with Representative Robbins, and maybe we can have this provision travel by itself. For those who don't know, Representative Robbins has done a great job putting together a bill that protects our kids from what is one of the primary driving factors for why we're seeing increases in teenage self-harm, children, particularly young women. And I really think this has an opportunity to gain the sort of bipartisan support we need at this session. So I would just encourage you, to the degree that you can, Representative Stevenson, I know that you have nothing else going on in your legislative portfolio right now. And so maybe you can free up a little bit of your time and have that bill be carried separately. I think that'd be a good provision. So I want to thank you for including those provisions.
All right, Representative Stevenson, I don't see any further questions. Do you have any closing comments?
I will just say it's a very good bill. I appreciate the good discussion and encouragement for support. Thank you, Representative Garofalo. I share your view of the Robbins bill.
All right, well, thank you, Chair Stevenson, for your committee work to address the issues that are impacting, you know, the everyday lives of Minnesotans across the state. With that, the chair will lay over House File 3607 as amended.